Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Plumbing compliance doesn't exactly sound like the most thrilling topic in the world. But stick with me here, because today we're taking this seemingly dry regulatory checklist and turning it into a literal seconds matter roadmap for your office safety. I mean, think about how fast a totally normal, boring Tuesday at the office can suddenly turn into a full-blown medical emergency. A simple accident in a supply closet, maybe a spill near a printer. In those split-second moments, having the right equipment installed and ready isn't just about passing some random inspection. It is, quite literally, the only thing standing between a minor oops and permanent, irreversible vision loss for one of your coworkers. So we're going to build a roadmap right now to make sure your facility is genuinely prepared for the worst.
So here's our game plan for today. We're going to quickly run through hidden office chemical hazards, how to actually assess your eyewash needs, why immediate access saves eyes, perfecting the flow and temperature of the water, and finally, maintenance, testing, and training. Let's get into it.
Starting right off with Section 1, Hidden Office Chemical Hazards.
Now you might be wondering, and it's a totally fair question, does a standard, everyday office really even need an emergency eyewash station? Most of us spend our days just typing at a desk, sitting in long meetings, or grabbing another cup of coffee from the break room, right? We're not exactly in a heavy manufacturing plant mixing volatile industrial chemicals. But honestly, this illusion of safety is exactly what makes the office environment so surprisingly vulnerable. The real risk doesn't come from your normal daily routine. It revolves entirely around the split second a totally simple, seemingly harmless task goes sideways. The moment someone is changing out a toner cartridge or trying to scrub out a tough stain, the risk profile of your cozy little office spikes dramatically.
Just think about all the unexpected culprits hiding right down the hall from you. We're talking about heavy-duty cleaners sitting in the janitorial closet, many of which are packed with industrial-strength solvents and highly concentrated alkalis. If your office happens to have a small testing area or maybe a dark room, suddenly you're dealing with lab reagents and photochemicals. Even just standard printing adhesives often contain volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, that can cause really severe ocular burns. The fact that these incredibly common, everyday items are just sitting around completely shifts the landscape. It takes emergency eyewash access from a nice little perk to an absolute, non-negotiable life safety requirement.
And here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. Time is the ultimate enemy here. We aren't talking about having a few minutes to react, we are talking about agonizingly brief seconds. In the event of an exposure to a hazardous liquid or an airborne particulate, those first 10 to 15 seconds are the absolute most critical window to prevent permanent tissue damage. Corrosive substances literally begin destroying delicate eye tissue the second they make contact. So the core goal of every single regulation we're looking at today is built entirely around this harsh biological reality. A victim has to be able to start a continuous, robust flush before that incredibly short window snaps shut.
Moving on to Section 2, Assessing Your Eyewash Needs.
Okay, so the very first practical step for any facility manager is the hazard assessment. But how do you actually, do that? Well, it starts with a really comprehensive audit. You need to pull the safety data sheets, the SDS, for every single product that enters your building. You document exactly what chemicals are being used, you note exactly where they're stored, and you carefully analyze how they're handled. Like, does your janitorial staff mix concentrated floor cleaner with water in one specific cramped utility closet? Does the IT team use compressed solvents to blast clean server components? By physically documenting these potential splash incidents, you're building the empirical foundation for literally all of your future safety decisions.
And doing that thorough assessment lets you clearly separate the high-risk scenarios from the low-risk ones. If you do your audit and realize, hey, our office only uses really low-risk products, well, you might just implement alternative controls. For example, you could swap out a highly corrosive chemical drain cleaner for a much safer enzyme-based alternative. Boom, risk downgraded, and you completely eliminate the need for an expensive plumb station. But, and this is a big but, if a credible threat actually exists for a chemical splash that could damage an eye, there are no workarounds. Period. Regulators say you absolutely must have a dedicated, fully compliant eyewash-ready approach in place.
Let's look at Section 3, Immediate Access Saves Eyes. Placement is literally everything. To understand why, you really have to put yourself in the shoes of someone experiencing an exposure. Imagine a panicked employee who just took a splash of solvent straight to the face. Their eyes are clamped shut in excruciating pain, they can't see, they're completely disoriented, and they are terrified. In that exact moment, an eyewash station tucked away in some remote supply closet, or locked behind a door, or down a flight of stairs, that becomes a deadly, insurmountable hurdle.
The path to relief has to be entirely unobstructed, situated right next to the hazard area, and clearly marked with highly visible signage so that coworkers can instantly grab the victim and guide them to safety. The golden rule, the widely accepted industry standard here, is the 10-second travel time rule. You just cannot expect a victim to travel through hazardous conditions or navigate some maze-like floor plan to get help. The path has to be instantly navigable for someone who literally cannot see. That means clear visibility and a quick reach for an incapacitated employee. And listen, when safety regulations mandate 0 obstacles, they mean exactly that. Even a janitorial cart parked there for just a minute, a random stack of printer paper boxes, or a propped open door singing into the pathway, that represents a critical, unacceptable compliance failure that will cost vital, eye-saving seconds.
All right, Section 4, perfecting flow and temperature.
So, providing a station is step 1, but how the water actually feels when it comes out, that is a massive compliance factor. We really need to talk about tempered water. Basically, this means the water is mechanically maintained at a comfortable, tepid temperature. Why is this a super strict rule? It all comes down to involuntary human reflexes. You see, the medical standard dictates a continuous 15-minute flush to thoroughly dilute and wash away those chemicals. Now, if that water is scalding hot or freezing cold, a person in intense pain is instinctively going to pull away way before that 15-minute mark is reached. The water literally has to be comfortable enough to physically endure sustained, thorough rinsing.
And beyond just the temperature, the actual equipment has to meet some pretty rigorous performance standards. Going back to your hazard assessment, that dictates exactly what you need. You have to make sure the flow rate is robust enough to wash both thighs simultaneously while hitting that minimum 15-minute flush duration. You also have to match the specific station type to the specific risk. For high-threat areas, you're usually going to need a heavily plumbed unit. Portable stations might do the trick for more isolated areas as long as they hold enough fluid. And what about those little personal squeeze bottles? Look, they're fantastic for immediate first aid, but they absolutely 100% do not replace the regulatory requirement for a primary 15-minute continuous flushing station. Which brings us to our final section, number 5, maintenance, testing, and training.
Look, you could have a perfectly placed, flawlessly plumbed station, but it is completely useless and honestly potentially hazardous if the water sitting inside it isn't safe. Plumbed units tend to sit idle for months on end, which leads to severe water stagnation. And guess what? Stagnant water breeds dangerous bacteria and amoebas. If you aren't following a strict written maintenance program to regularly clear out those valves and nozzles, an injured employee could successfully flush a chemical out of their eye only to introduce a devastating microbial infection. Yikes! So, you must routinely check operational readiness, control that stagnation by running the units weekly, and heavily document your inspection schedule to prove you're actually in compliance.
Remember, compliance is an ongoing action. It requires continuous human readiness. Your whole team needs to know exactly where these stations are and understand the immediate flushing procedures long before an accident ever happens. On top of that, there are some really specific, critical medical protocols to cover, like contact lenses. Did you know contact lenses can actually trap corrosive chemicals directly against the delicate cornea, rapidly accelerating the damage? Yeah. So, training employees on the medical consensus to immediately remove lenses during a flush adds immense practical value. And of course, absolutely everyone must know to seek professional medical evaluation the very second that 15-minute flush is over.
Now, in a standard office setting, we certainly hope eyewash usage is incredibly rare. But the problem is, rarity breeds complacency. During a really high-stress, extremely painful emergency, our human cognitive processing just kind of plummets. People are going to forget what they quickly skimmed in an employee handbook 5 years ago. Short, periodic refreshers and physical hands-on drills are really the only things that prevent critical delays. By coordinating these recurring drills with your safety officer, you're making sure that when seconds truly count, blind panic is instantly replaced by practiced, reliable muscle memory.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a very serious question to ask yourself. If a chemical splash exposure happened in your building today, like right now, is your office actually ready? Seriously, could a blinded employee reach safety in under 10 seconds? Would the water be clear, tempered, and ready to flow for a full 15 minutes? Take this crucial thought back to your facility managers, your safety officers, and your teams. Because when it comes to saving a colleague's vision, readiness isn't just an administrative suggestion, it's absolutely everything. Thanks so much for joining me today.